Hey, True Believers, Chris Mack coming at you with New Mutants, number 25. Before we go through this, we are going to review it, but if y'all don't mind kind of hanging around at the end, there's sort of a discussion I'd like to have about modern comics versus old comics. So let's go ahead and go through this issue, which absolutely amazing. There are parts that feel kind of like an afternoon special for those of you that remember those on TV. But the price of power, fantastic. And a gorgeous cover, as you can see, by Bill Sienkiewicz. And before we even talk about this, let's talk about who made this. This is Chris Claremont writing, Bill Sienkiewicz art, Stanley presenter, Tom Orzanowski and Buhalis doing the lettering, Glynis Wine colorist, and Nasanti was the editor, Jim Shooter, editor-in-chief, and New Mutants are the stars. Print date on this was March 1985. So this book focuses primarily, surprisingly, and very welcomed, Cloak and Dagger. And it says here that their powers are no more, taken from them by the two youngest of Charles Xavier's novice students, the New Mutants. And for a brief time, it seemed like their answers to their prayers. They were human once more. They were free. But the price of remaining so, the condemnation of two innocent souls, proved even more terrible burden. And so they've come to St. Anne's Church to try to solve this issue. And then you turn the page and just look at how gorgeous this piece is. This is Tandy's, I think it's her real name, Dagger's uncle. He's a priest here. And we have all the New Mutants plus Rogue, which is kind of awesome. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful piece. And they go around the room explaining each character. The people that have Cloak and Dagger's powers right now is Bobby and Rain, and it's tearing them apart. Now, remember in past reviews I've talked about when they introduced characters' powers, how it felt organic or it felt poignant or something interesting in the older days. As were modern times, they'd just say like, this is Rogue. She doesn't like coffee and she like steals people's powers, and it just feels very shallow. Listen to this. I'll do Ileana's. Ileana Rasputin, a demon sorceress, in addition to her mutant ability to teleport, who feels singularly uncomfortable to be in the house of God, and whose impromptu attempt, only minutes before, to cure her teammates of their affliction had disastrous, nearly fatal results. Whew. Now listen to this. Lastly, there's Rogue, a member of Xavier's senior team of superheroes, the Uncanny X-Men. These 7 are mutants whose unique genetic structure grants them extraordinary powers, but also sets them forever apart from their fellow humanity. In this way, they are just like Cloak and Dagger. Though no fault of their own, by accident of birth or of fate, all are outcasts, with no one to turn to, none to depend on, but themselves. That is how you intro a book. Oh my God, that is excellent writing, set upon by a beautiful set piece here. Bill Sienkiewicz and the art team just full on display gorgeousness. And see how organically we were introduced to Ileana, and why Claremont is explaining the look of uncomfortableness on her face, because she is part mutant, part demon. And so the majority of this book is Cloak and Dagger trying to deal with themselves without their powers, and Ty, whose Cloak is having the hardest time. He's getting short, snapping at people, self-doubting, saying, you know, people are looking at you. I just heard Towdy. I should just go away. Maybe the way I just pushed her away, it's for the best. And then we get a moment of how Ileana tried to take her Rain and Bobby to Limbo to cast out the powers, or are they calling it like demonic possession or something like that. But she said that it nearly tore them apart. So the first half of this book is Xavier talking to Ty and trying to help him. He's saying, you've nothing to fear, lad. I give my word. I will not pry into your thoughts. Merely I wish to talk with you. And because he doesn't have his powers, he feels inadequate and insecure. And so he has, I guess, like a natural stuttering problem. So he's like, this is free country, man. You can do whatever you want. He's like, this is stupid. I'm talking to a ghost. There ain't even a guy who's hardly even there. But Xavier, being passionate and patient, talks to this man. So you're thinking, oh God, sitting and talking. I understand that. But the exception to that is when it means something. So I'm going to try to get through this. I don't want to read all of it, but it really resonates hard. Xavier's talking about how he probed into Cain's mind when they were children, when his powers first manifested. And he says Cain was just severely beaten by my stepfather, and I could feel that pain and hatred and whatnot inside of him. And I couldn't get myself out because I didn't know how. Cain thought I was prying, and to this day he won't forgive me. And so after that, not only Cain's thoughts, but everyone's thoughts were open to me. I very nearly went mad before I learned to control my talent. There was so much hurt in our house in those days. All I could do was sense were dark and ugly things. How sad that our negative thoughts and emotions always seem to be stronger and more prevalent than the gentler aspects of our natures. We are creatures of passion, which too often, regrettably, finds its expression in violence. I believe my psi talents was the most horrible curse imaginable. I would have given anything to get rid of it. But in time, I came to understand that it wasn't the ability that was causing such anguish. It was my fear of using it and what it might show me. So Ty's like, you're saying that my power ain't evil, it's just that I'm scared. It's my fear that makes me do bad things to hurt people. And Xavier says, I can't answer that, Tyrone. I don't know what your power is, but I know that you seem able to cope with it, whereas Roberto cannot. And so there's a moment of resolution, which is very heartwarming and endearing. And while all this is going on, which I don't want to give away, there's a moment how Kevin's artwork beautifully shows how the shadows are tearing Roberto apart. So after the beginning, setting up what's going on with Tyrone and Tandy or Toddy, I forget her name, we get all this established. Xavier says, we need to go back to Limbo, but we all need to go. And so far, this book has been real heavy. So when Ileana casts everyone to Limbo, I do appreciate that, Rain's like, don't worry, Tyrone. Teleporting isn't unpleasant. And I like how, in this Limbo I hate, it's a nasty, wicked place. And Danny says, Firetop's right, Ty. You'll never find a more loathsome hive of scum and villainy. And Sam's like, Danny, jeez. See, and just that right there was enough of just a random joke to kind of break the tension. It doesn't have to go into more Star Wars. We get it. It's hilarious. And it helped. So this is where I said that the shadows begin to tear apart Bobby. And then Rogue has to take him because she plays an integral part. And it almost tears Rogue to pieces. Ileana has to cast the exorcism again, but she says, the light side of cloak and the dagger and the dark side of cloak, they're like yin and yang. They equal each other out, and they have to have a host. And while all this is going on, Xavier can't believe what he's seeing in his student. And he goes, I'm going to have to talk to Ileana about this power, because remember, when she joined the team, she lied about, everything that was going on in Limbo. And it kind of causes some issues. Now, I don't want to give away any more of this part of the book because there's a lot of good action and drama, but there's a epilogue where Cloak and Dagger say that they're going back to the streets to help runaways because no one else will help them. Either they don't care or they don't want to be bothered. So they find these kids who are kind of getting duped into trafficking and dope and whatnot. And Tandy reaches out to her uncle, the priest. Cloak takes the pusher. If ever a soul were born to feed the shadow slick, it's yours. And you just see this man terrified. Sienkiewicz's art exaggerates it. As far from this, and he's saying, run away to Slick, as far from the city as you can. Never return and never again lay a hand on another child, or you will answer to me. Next time, rest assured, I will not be so merciful. And just heavy, great read. You know, when they chose Bill Sienkiewicz to take over, his artwork really enhanced Chris Claremont's words and made for some very impactful storytelling. And that's why stories like these, The Demon Bear, etc., so forth, have stood the test of time. Because just like how Stan Lee said with Marvel, this the world outside your window, you know, trafficking, dope dealing, even to this modern time, is still two very serious situations. You know, kids having these powers, learning to deal with it, just like adolescents learning to grow up, all compact into here and having to deal with responsibilities of actions, of what you're about, how you have to figure out things for yourself to a degree with the right counseling. All packed into one awesome comic book. I cannot stress how great this was. This time for me is just a very special time for the X books. Whew. So with that said, now that the praising of this is over, what I want to discuss, because I know I kind of did a real rough review on Wolverine number 7 with X of Swords, and a lot of people are probably going to be like, why are you so rough, man? Here's why. So we just went over New Mutants, right? I'm not going to go over this whole book, but here's X of Swords, Hellions. I was going to review this, and I'll be honest with you, I absolutely hated it. I fell asleep, I think, about 8-9 times reading it. I can tell when a book's bad because I keep falling asleep. I thought maybe I was just tired. Got up, had some coffee. No. So we're just going to kind of go over the key points here. So the last few issues of Hellions has been awesome, just like Wolverine, right? Well, remember, Empath tries to use his powers on, what's his name, the gunner, something Crow. Is it Black Crow or something like that? Anyway, I can't remember. But he shoots him in the head, so he gets resurrected, right? And here comes Xavier, and he's like, easy now, what's your name, child? What's your name? Keep your hands off me. All right, we're not doing that then. Because remember how in the other X of Swords books, how it's like this big praise thing. Now, real quick, just like I said, we're not reviewing the whole book, but let me give credit where credit's due on the book. This is Zeb Wells writing, Cameron Carreno doing the art, David Carell doing the coloring, VC's Ariana Maher doing the lettering, everyone else working on the book. And so the last thing I do want to say is, okay, so we know Empath's a jerk. And he's like, so where's my big festival and stuff like that? And Hope, who used to be very compassionate, raised by Cable, she just goes, we're thinking you should just go out the back door. Whatever. Just, like we just said, we went over this book. Compassion, humility, you know, having to face demons. And just because Hope doesn't like this guy and kind of writes him off as a lost cause because he's part of the Hellions, oh, we figured take that back door. We don't, you know, out the back door out and not show your face. We don't care. And then here, X of Swords is supposed to be a contest, and if the mutants lose, they lose Earth. And everyone agrees to the Hellions infiltrating and stealing. And it's just the dialogue and the reading, it's so boring. I mean, this is sitting and talking and they're just planning. There's nothing like this where there's a human interest story where we saw Xavier sitting and talking to Tyrone about the responsibility of power. This is everyone just sitting around talking crap. Here, from where the empath I shot is standing, yeah. From where the empath is, that's, or, because Orphan Maker's like, but empath's still dead? From where the empath I shot is standing, yeah. From the empath that's alive is standing, no. Comes down to whose opinion is more important. A living person who can breathe and talk, or a corpse that can't say about. Oh, the language. Who cares? And then Sinister. We all remember Sinister always being like debonair and like insidious. Here he's just so LOL, so random, because he doesn't want to lead the team to a Krakow or a Kroko or Morocco or whatever it's called. And it's just very dull, very irritating, very boring. Jamie Braddock sees Sinister. Oh, that's a right cracking cape you got there. And then it becomes, get the pony. I don't want the pony. Get the pony. He's like, you have something, like, let's trade gifts. And so for panels upon panels, it's Sinister complaining that he had to give up his cape. More reading, more setup. Empath taking over the Crow character again, and oh, look at those. They sparkle like stars. You're one radiant soul. You can do better than that. I won't stop until I, try until I do. And it's just so random. And there was no buildup. There was no drama. There was no tension. As we're here, we start out with Ty, Cloak, doubting himself. And, he snapped at the one person he cared about, Dagger. And Xavier has a heart-to-heart with him. And once he was able to calm down and kind of come to a resolution within himself, they faced their literal demons in hell. People standing around talking about nothing. Compared to Ileana talking about her powers. Here, learn from your mistakes, Ileana, to help yourself, as we will try to do to help the children. After you disappeared, what precisely happened? Well, something Rogue said made me wonder if Cloak and Dagger's powers might be susceptible to magic. I figured it was worth a try. So I teleported them to Limbo, the arcane realm where my own sorcery reigned supreme, and cast an exorcism. It worked too, kind of. The light and shadows were driven from them, but it proved more than I could handle. I tried to banish the powers, but I couldn't. The stress nearly tore me apart. I had no choice but to cancel my spell and return them to the kids. So, ticking clock because the powers went back to Bobby, and Rain because there was nowhere for the darkness to go. Here, this very lame knockoff of Sinister is arguing with himself, telling him, I command you to go with the Hellions, and because I'm not going to go. Who cares? That's why I'm so done with Marvel, modern Marvel. It does not hold a flame to what the old school cats did, where they would literally take what's outside your window, as we just said about those issues, and put them in a superhero book and still balance it. Just like how Stan Lee, if you go back and watch the episode where he was at the stash, he was talking about how, Peter Parker was a superhero, but you cared about Peter Parker because you wanted to know if he was going to get on time to the date with Gwen Stacy or get his homework in. There's the reason that you have to care. You care about what's happening in these characters and New Mutants. Here, I don't care what's going on with the Crow character or Empath, because they don't give you a reason. There's nothing Here, it's an empty shell, as where this was filled with heartwarming moments, had charm and really tugged on the heartstrings and really showed you what the price of power means. As Spider-Man always say, with great power comes great responsibility, and this comic aptly showed that. Okay, I shall step off my soapbox, but I just wanted everyone to kind of understand why a lot of the more modern books are just kind of bleh, in my opinion. And that's okay if you disagree. I love to hear everyone's thoughts because, if we talk and communicate, maybe I might be missing something. But I just wanted to show off how great this book is. I mean, look at that. Look at the power of Cloak here, or Dagger, and then Cloak here, and then everything that's supposed to be going on in this book is shown on display here very, very beautifully. So with that said, I will say if you guys have enjoyed either comic book, please, first and foremost, support your local comic shop and pick it up. If you've enjoyed this review / rant, we really would appreciate it if you take a moment to hit that fancy little X bell next to subscribe. That way as we continue to upload content, you guys get notified and come to the channel. And as I was just saying, I love to hear everyone else's opinions and thoughts because that creates a debate or just a fun conversation, a healthy debate, should I say, and just to hear y'all's thoughts on these as well. It's really fun and engaging, and that's one thing I really do appreciate is being able to talk with everybody down in the comments below or on our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, thank you so much for stopping by. Hope y'all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.